Um, so if you don't have any questions, we're just gonna start on material. That's all right? Sorry. Good. So let's start looking at taxes. This first unit is all about money. And we're going to talk about taxes and how interest works. So the first unit or the first chapter is on taxes. Second chapter is on interest. So together it's all about money, right? All right. So let's start with what a tax is. Key thing about a tax is it's compulsory. It's not optional, right? You have to do it. You have to pay taxes or else you get, well, eventually thrown into prison, right? By some government. But the tax is a compulsory contribution to state revenue levied by the government. Now, a lot of times because we live in the United States, we think of just the word state as the 50 states. Just the word state here doesn't necessarily mean one of the 50 states. It could mean government, it could mean a local municipality, could be anything, right? So state just means a section of governed territory. Does that make sense? So compulsory contribution to state revenue levied by the government, right? We're going to look at a few different taxes and how they're calculated. One of the taxes that we run into a lot is sales tax. You can see the official definition there. Most of us have pretty good familiarity with sales taxes. You go to a store and you buy something and they charge you for that something and then they tack on an extra cost that goes to the state. So it's a tax added to the cost of goods or services or transactions that goes to the state. Right. So again, go to the bookstore, you buy something, it's marked at $19.99, and they charge you $20.05, some $21.15, whatever they charge. Okay. Another type of tax that we're going to look at in this chapter is an income tax. This is one a lot of us encounter as well. You get a paycheck and they as in your employer is required to take money out of your paycheck, out of your income, and then send that to the government, right? The same thing happens with certain businesses. They tax the income or profits of businesses, right? And if you haven't dealt with income tax yet, I'm sure you will in the near future, right? Anytime you get a paycheck, they take that tax out and send it to the government. Now, these are not the only two types of taxes. There's lots and lots of other taxes that are applied. If you see the paycheck, you know that not only do they take out income taxes, but they take out a Social Security tax as well, right? This is on top of the income tax. If you own a house, then most states have property taxes. In the state of Michigan, you gotta pay property tax. There's all sort of licensing fees that are also taxes in their own right. So for instance, every year I buy a fishing license, all right? And if you look at the definition of tax, it's compulsory. I have to buy it, or else you get in trouble for fishing, right? So it's compulsory in contribution, it goes to state revenue, and it's levied by the government. So all of those licensing fees, like fishing license, or if you get a license to drive, all of those types of fees associated with that are taxes in some ways. Okay. Again, there's lots and lots of other ones that you can, lump into that category of taxes. And they all work different. Okay? They all work differently. A sales tax is going to work different than a property tax, and a property tax is going to work different than an income tax. And we're going to look at how to calculate with those taxes. We're going to focus on sales tax and income tax because both of those taxes are percentage based, but they're actually applied a little bit different. Okay, so there's some interesting differences between sales taxes and income taxes. When you go to get a fishing license, everybody pays the same amount, basically. All right, there's like youth rates and veterans rates and all that stuff, but basically everybody pays the same amount. Whereas sales tax and income tax, those are percentage based. So we're gonna focus on those in this chapter. Okay. So let's take a look at sales taxes. Between sales taxes and income taxes, these sales taxes are a little bit more straightforward. Okay. Most states have sales taxes when you buy goods. All right. However, it turns out each state works slightly different on what they charge for sales tax and what they don't. So if you go into Meijer down the street here, we're in the middle of Michigan, and you buy a box of cereal, do they apply sales tax to that in Michigan? They don't, right? To food that you buy in a grocery store, they don't apply taxes on that, right? Most foods. If you go into Illinois and do the same thing, you go into their grocery store and you buy cereal, turns out they were going to tax that cereal. You guys know that? Here's an interesting thing. If you go into the store and you buy a shirt in Michigan, they apply sales tax to that. If you go to Minnesota and buy a shirt, they don't apply sales tax to it. So clothing, they don't apply sales tax to in Minnesota. And so each state has all these intricacies of what they apply taxes on and what they don't, is what I'm trying to say. Okay. Anything we apply taxes on, that we apply sales taxes on, we call it taxable good. You can also apply sales taxes on services and things of that nature too. Doesn't have to be a physical object. All right. And so we're going to use the word taxable good. And we're not going to dive into the details of, what state, what items can be taxed and what items are not taxed in which states. So one thing in common to all the different states in the United States, different municipalities, is that sales taxes are percentage based. Right? Which means it's a percentage. And we're going to assume that all the taxable goods that we're going to look at are taxed at the same rate. I'm just going to say taxable goods. We're not going to apply any special rates to any other things. If you look at the sales tax rate per state, obviously it's different. Let's see if I can do an image here, search. See if I can, oh, there you go. That's what I was looking for. There you go. So here's all the rates of sales taxes per state. Now, within each state, local municipalities can have a little bit different, all right? But the two we're going to use, that might be hard to see, the two that we're going to use in this section are the Michigan sales tax, for obvious reasons. We live in Michigan. So it's at 6%. I know probably a lot of you can't read that, but Michigan sales tax is 6%. And the other one we'll use, trying to see if I can zoom in on that. The other one we're going to use will be Illinois, and that's 8.73%. Now that's the statewide sales tax for Illinois, I believe. I don't think it's averaged. I think that's the statewide sales tax. And again, if you go into Chicago, it may be a little bit higher in that municipality. Okay. So in certain cities, they apply an extra sales tax on top of the state sales tax. So if you go into Chicago and want to rent a hotel room, they're going to apply tax, and then they're going to apply a city tax as well on top of that. So this is just the statewide average. We'll use those two numbers going forward. Michigan, 6%. And then the Illinois at 8.73%. By the way, notice Oregon and Montana here are in gray. What do you think that means?
No sales tax.
No sales tax there, right? All of their revenues come from different taxes, probably income tax and property taxes. Okay. So no sales tax there. Texas, this number looks pretty high, 8.20. But if we'll see later that if you look at the state income tax in Texas, it's actually zero. There's no income tax in Texas. So all of their revenue comes from the sales taxes. Okay. All of the revenue in Montana comes from income taxes and property taxes. Okay. In Texas, it all comes from sales taxes and property taxes, I guess. All right, so yeah, so some of these you think, well, why is it so high in that state, or why is it so low state? It kind of depends on how much money the states are spending, and then also kind of what their other what their rates are on their other taxes. All right, so now we know Michigan sales tax and Illinois sales tax. So because Michigan is at 6%, we just have to say, let's calculate. We're gonna buy $315 worth of stuff. How do I calculate what 6% of 315 is?
Multiply it by 6% and then subtract that number.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna, all I'm saying is the 6%, so I'm not subtracting or adding yet. So if I want to find 6% of 315, I just take 6% and multiply it by 315. Now, I just said something really quickly. When I say multiply 6% times 315, I have to realize 6%. Blue marker, I knew that. 6% as a decimal is 0.06. Okay. So if I do 6% of 315, I take the 6% written as a decimal and multiply it by 315. Okay. This is something you just type into your calculator. And I ended up with 18.9. So 6% of 315 is 18.9. If it were 6% of $315, it'd be $18.9, right? Now, the reason I moved the decimal over 2 spots, that's how we convert things from percentage to a decimal, right? Is we take the decimal, which was right here, and I moved it over 2 spots. The reason we moved that over 2 spots is because every time we're talking about a percentage, when I say 6%, I'm actually saying 6 out of 100. Right? That's what we mean by a percentage, is how much out of 100. And whenever you divide by 100, the effect of dividing by 100 is moving the spot, the decimal spot, 2 to the left. Okay. Now I'm saying this, I'm taking my time with this. Most of you, I'm sure, already know this. Okay. When you go from percentage to decimal, move the decimal over 2 spots. And that's because whenever you're talking about a percentage, you're talking about it out of 100%. Right? By the way, that decimal, I'll often call the rate. All right? So I'll often call that decimal the rate, or a rate of 0.06. And whenever you're dealing with percentages, a percent of a number is just the rate times the number. Okay. And to get the rate from the percentage, we just move the decimal over 2 spots. So this is the general percentage equation, that the end amount that we're looking for is just the rate times the original amount. Now we're going to see something in a little bit and we're gonna adjust what rate we use, but because all of the sales taxes are percentages based, it's gonna be this equation over and over and over again for sales taxes. All right. End amount is rate times the original. So think about this. Let's say we live in Michigan, which I assume we all do. Be a long drive if you can live here, right? And you go to a store and you buy $415.42 worth of taxable goods. In other words, $415.42 worth of taxable goods. We can ask two questions. How much sales tax do we pay? And then how much will the total price be like at the checkout? Or how much is my final bill, my final price? Well, since we live in Michigan, we're gonna apply the 6%, right? And the sales tax is just going to be my rate of 6% multiplied times my original amount, which is $415.42. So the sales tax is just 0.06 times 415.42. I typed that in on my calculator. Now, if you notice, when you multiply these two, what happened is you got a decimal that went out to 4 spots. Everybody get that? In practicality, if you go into a store, they can't charge you $24.9252, right? Whatever that would be. So every time we're dealing in money, our final answer, we're going to round to two decimal places. I'm going to write this out right now as what the calculator gave me. But it's just practicality. I have to round this to 2 decimal places. So I look at this second decimal place since it's a 2. And to the right, there's a 5. 5 or higher makes that 2 round up to a 3. If it were 4 or lower, it would round down to a 2, right? Keep it at 2. So 24.93. So that's what the sales tax would be, and that's the answer you write in Moodle, 24.93. Now I want to do this one. What's the total price at checkout? But I'm going to do it probably a different way than you're thinking. After you calculate the tax, you say, well, the original price was $415.42. And we've calculated the tax, so let's just add $415.42 to $24.93. That'd be perfectly fine to do. But in later problems, that becomes that equation becomes too many steps. All right? Kind of a weird concept. So in order to use that equation, that end amount equals this equation. In order to use the end amount equals my rate times original, to calculate the total at checkout, I'm going to say the total at checkout, or the final price, is this one. And I'm going to use a special rate. All right. Now, if you go and buy something in a store, you buy an item which is $415.42. You pay the total of the $415.42 and then also the tax, right? So as a percentage, you pay 100% of the item plus an additional 6% on tax. So the final price is 106% of the original price. Does that make sense? So it's 100% plus an additional 6. And so the rate we're going to use is not 0.06, but rather 1.06 times the original. And that's what we're going to use for this. So the final price is 1.06 times my original amount, which was $415.42. And I'm also going to round that to 2 decimal places. I'll do that just on my own this time. But 4. I got 440.35 when I rounded it to 2 decimal places. So 440. .35. Okay. You guys read that, it's not tons of away. All right. Okay. And that's it. That's the final answer. So the tax is just 6%, but the final price at checkout is 106%. That's the point of this problem. And then also, just make sure when you're dealing with money, round that final answer to the nearest cent. Okay, so the nearest 2 decimal places. All right. So I want you just to do this on your own for just one example. If you lived in Illinois, remember Illinois has a sales tax rate of 8.73. That website said. You can trust everything on the internet, so sure it's right. That one's probably trusted. That was probably fairly trustworthy. But 8.73%. I want you to find the sales tax on that. And then find the final price or the checkout price after taxes are applied. All right. So if we're in Illinois, the sales tax is going to be 8.73 of the 415.42. Be careful on this, 8.73. If I move the decimal place over 2, that is 0.0873. And then times 415.42. Now, I do not want to round this in the middle of the problem. I see that? I don't want to round this to 0.09. I only round my final answer to 2 decimal places, but not the numbers within the problem. So everybody understand that? So don't round until the very, very end. Once I did this multiplication, 415.42. I ended up with 36.2666166. Again, if you're rounding to 2 decimal places, that becomes 36.27, and the label on that would be dollars. So the amount to sales tax would be $36.27. The final price, similarly, will be 1.0873 times the 415.42. When I made that calculation, I'll do the rounding as well. I got 451, excuse me, almost put the 15 backwards. $451.69. And that was my final price. Okay. Pretty straightforward so far. So we got tax prices. We're going to just write 0.06 or whatever the tax rate is times the amount of taxable goods gives us the tax. Our 100 plus tax rate times the taxable good price gives us our final price at checkout. And it's pretty clear to see that if you're buying these goods, you're gonna pay less in Michigan than you are in Illinois because of the sales tax rate, right? There we go. Next time, what we're gonna do is instead of asking for the final price always, sometimes we can ask for the final price, but we can also ask for the original price. And then we can do a comparison. It's pretty easy to compare, right? Just look at the two numbers. How much more do you spend over there than over here? Okay. But we can also use this same equation of the end amount is equal to rate times the original to say, well, if I paid a certain final price, what was the original price? We'll do that calculation too. All right, so that's next time. Any questions about material today? Yeah, we'll start back up on 1-1. We'll start back up where we left off on Thursday. All right. And if you want to start that homework, feel free to do so. You can start that homework, you get most of the way through it, I'd say. Okay. All right, see everybody next class.